The local Veteran Spotlight here on Channel 6 Central Kentucky Television is brought to you by ElderCare Financial Resources.
Hello, I'm Kenny Fogle. Spent 25 years in the Air Force. My dad spent a few years in the United States Marines during World War II, and we're both veterans. And why is that important? Well, it's important for one reason, because a few years ago, my dad passed away. Mom was living on her own for a few years and got to the point that she just couldn't do that anymore. So we had to look for some place for her to go, an assisted living, nursing home, something of that nature. So what we had to do is we looked around for some way to get this paid for. So we checked with ElderCare Financial Resources. And they put us in touch with the VA, as they were able to do a lot of the work with the VA, paperwork, things of that nature. They did every bit of it and did it for free. In-home services, if you're recuperating at home, or if you go to a nursing home or assisted living, you want to check with ElderCare Financial Resources, and they can set you up with a VA program that could help pay for some of this. They've been in business about 37 years, last 10 years with the VA, and they've been a godsend for us. So if you need help with that, need help with anything to do with Veterans Administration, as far as elder care, as far as staying at home, going to an assisted living or nursing home, again, give them a call. ElderCare Financial Resources. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Channel 6 TV. Kenny Fogle here. Glad you could join us tonight here on Community Focus. As always, we'd like for you to join us and listen in and see what you can learn a little bit, and hopefully we can entertain as well. We always have our focus on veterans. We've been doing that quite a bit over the last several months, and that's one of the things that we'd like to continue to do. And I've got a gentleman here that's if you're in Bardstown area, he's not a stranger to you. He's the Human Resources Director up at Bardstown City Schools, but he's also a veteran, served several years with the U.S. military, and we'll talk about that. Mr. Paul Bowling. First of all, Paul, welcome to the show today.
Matthew, thank you for having me.
Well, I appreciate
Glad to be here.
it. So, let's get into human resources before we even get into what exactly do you do there at Bardstown Schools?
Well, human resources is largely just taking care of all the personnel at the school. And some of it is record keeping, and some of it is just being the go-to person if there's any kind of issue for an employee. Yeah. Also be the go-to person for the principals if they have an issue with a staff member or something, and it may not be a negative issue. It may just be something that somebody needs to take leave or anything like that. They come to me to help work those things out.
What's the staffing right now at Bardstown City?
We've got about 415 employees total.
So that's quite a bit of number to juggle there for a while.
It's much different than it was 22 years ago when I got there.
So being at Bardstown Schools, being with the military, I know there's differences, obviously difference in school, but how much do you attribute of your success with Bardstown Schools with your experience in the military?
Well, I would say I attribute a lot of it because, I went into the military as a very young man that wasn't very mature. I was 18 years old, and really the things I learned at basic training and the things I learned that were instilled in me in the Air National Guard really helped develop who I am today. It helped me as a teacher through my career as a coach, and then also as a principal for many years. And even when I applied for my principal job, I was able to say on my resume that I was a supervisor in the Kentucky Air National Guard. Mm-hmm. And those are things that translate over. They're different, but they're also the same. So,
18 years old. Now, I was
18.
18 years old. Now, what made you decide? I know you had some family thing going on there, but is that the number one thing got you involved with the military?
Probably, but there were really three things, I think, and I spoke to some high school students yesterday at the Veterans Day program at the high school, and I told them that there were three things. One of them was family. Both of my grandfathers served in World War II in the Army. My uncle worked as a full-time person at the Air National Guard base, so he was talking to me. My dad was in the Air Force, so I have a lot of family members. There were others, but those were the main ones. And I was that appealed to me that my family had done that. I was also looking for a way to make some college money. Yeah. But the other thing is I knew deep inside I had some growing up to do when I was such a young man, and I thought that it would be good for me. to go into the military.
I always said the Air National Guard, and National Guard in general, people knew those were National Guards around, been around just about every county has one. The Air National Guard to me was a well-kept secret.
Absolutely.
I mean, unless you've had family members, I found out by accident, I'll be honest with you. I was in Okinawa when I found out that I didn't even know we had an Air National Guard. I'm getting ready to come home, and I happened to stumble across it. So the Air National Guard is a very well-kept secret, but it's a very tight-knit family. That's
Yes,
one of the
it
things
is.
I learned when I got there. And so exactly what were you doing during your time with the Air National Guard?
I was in the aerial port squadron, and I chose that career field because I knew I was going to go into teaching, and I didn't want to be doing the same kind of thing on the weekends. I wanted to do something a little different, and so I wanted to be outside, possibly. I wanted to choose a career field that would get me on the air, get me out on the airstrip and working around the airplanes. So the aerial port squadron, we build pallets and work with cargo. We load the airplanes. We're involved with the airdrops. So those are things that appealed to me, and that's why I chose that career.
So the aerial port, for a lot of people that don't understand, is you're basically the scheduler, the logistics and everything. Everything goes on that plane pretty much goes through you.
Absolutely, especially with cargo planes. Now, a fighter unit wouldn't have an aerial port, but any unit that has cargo planes, they have an aerial
Now,
port.
you have any passengers much? I mean, I know off and on you hear people getting space A, they call it.
We do have a few. Down at the air base, or the Air Force Base in Louisville at Sanford Field, we didn't really have a lot of passengers. But I was deployed in 2003 when the Iraqi conflict broke out, and I stayed at Ramstein for 6 or 7 months. And I was actually a shift supervisor at the Ramstein passenger terminal. And that is a part of our job that we learn. And when we went over there was 24 of us, and they said we need some people to work the passenger terminal. And they said you need to be able to talk to people, work computers. And I said, you know what, I will do that. And I got a couple of the other guys to come with me, and it was a really good experience because we were helping a lot of the troops that were going to the Middle East to get there, not only get themselves there, but to get all their things there, all their baggage. And I felt like it was a pretty important job, but while I was deployed, it's all I did was work the passenger terminal.
So your comparison between active duty and Air National Guard, I mean, is it a pretty smooth transition? You feel like when you went into Ramstein, I mean, you walked in, basically, you were an airman. You walked in, you weren't an Air National Guard person.
No.
You were one just as part of the team there as well.
That's exactly right, and that's basically what the National Guard trains for. We wear the same uniform. It doesn't say Air National Guard, it says United States Air Force. And we don't have the volume of real-world work in the National Guard. It's a lot of training, but the training that we have does prepare us. So in a very short amount of time, a matter of days, we'd be pretty up to speed with the active duty guys and step right in and work right with them.
So what kind of training you need, or what kind of tech school, anything like that they send you to?
I went to tech school for 6 weeks down at Wichita Falls, Texas, and it was, the actual career field was it was a different thing. It was a 605, and then they changed it to a 2T2.
I still don't know those new AFSCs.
Right, they changed them, but and it was all about using the pallet system, and they showed you how to use the rail systems on the airplanes, and it was 6 weeks worth of technical training, and when I came back, I was ready to go.
Well, people don't realize that I used to use the word science that goes into loading an airplane. I mean, it's something as simple as how much the plane weighs, how much fuel goes in it, how much cargo goes in. I mean, there's just where things are placed. I mean, I don't think you just don't open the door and throw stuff in.
One of the sections that within the aerial port is load planning. And there's a special course for that, but it's all about the center of balance, and it has to do with how much fuel is on the plane and where do you put each pallet based on their weight, because if you don't do that right, the plane can't fly.
Yeah. So like I said, there's a science to it that you have to learn. I mean,
absolutely.
And people don't realize what all goes behind them. When they see a plane land or take off, they don't understand it's not just the pilot and the navigator. There's a whole lot more going behind it.
There's a load master in there that takes care of the loads, and then the aerial port people are the ones that plan it all out to the plane.
So you had all this training and all, and you get any education through the Air Force? I mean, as far as going to college and things of that nature, they help you on that too as well.
I did. What people, and I was telling the kids about it recently, but you get your drill pay for the weekend. there's Montgomery GI Bill that gives you some supplemental money each month if you're a full-time student. And then when I first went in, there was a student loan repayment system that they had, but now it's, if you're in the Army Guard or Air Guard in Kentucky and you go to a state school, it's full tuition. And I saw some faces out there, you know, with the students yesterday when I was talking to them. I was like, did you say they pay all your tuition? I said, yes, they do, you know. So like you said, it's a little bit of a secret. A lot of kids just don't know. So I spent a lot of time talking about the benefits.
Well, that was my next question. I mean, you've got an opportunity that a lot of us don't have. I mean, you're around students or teachers all the time and career counselors. I mean, this is a career that a lot of times counselors don't tell you about. I mean, they tell you about the military. Now, and I think most of them will say you got a military, but they don't, obviously they don't have time, the resources, but you do. And are you, I'm not saying are you actively recruiting, but you do know how to point people in the right direction.
I do, and you're right, I'm not out there recruiting every day, but I have let kids know that, and I even said this yesterday, hey, if you have questions about active duty or guard, just you basically know where I am. Hunt me down. I'll tell you what to do and hook you up with somebody to talk to. But I think maybe in the past, kids used to really see the military as an option, and maybe that's faded a little bit.
It may have, but I don't know if it's faded as much as people are finding jobs easier now,
Maybe.
and maybe they don't. Maybe they're not thinking college. Maybe they're not. But again, and not only that, but as you said, you were totally different. But some people they learn a trade there that helps them considerably once they get out.
Yeah, there were people that I knew in the Guard, and I told the kids this, that went to basic, went to tech school, learned how to be an aircraft mechanic, and they came back, and after a little bit of experience in the Guard, they went to work for UPS working on airplanes because they had some of that experience and some training, and they got it for free, basically, that training. So there's absolutely some career transition as well, or some crossover that people can take advantage of.
Well, I ask you a related question. It might throw you just a little off balance, but I don't mean it that way. Is the school systems. I mean, back when I was coming up, we had a lot of civics classes and things. I don't see as much of that now as I did back then. So maybe, I don't know. I don't know if the kids today don't see the military or see that as an option as much, or what it is. But is there something we should be doing more so? And I hate to put you in that position, but
that's a tough question. I think we teach what the state tells us we have to teach. I do know that our social studies department, they basically do the Veterans Day program every year, and they put a lot of emphasis on bringing veterans in to talk to the kids and sharing the experiences like they did with me yesterday. And that does, it does at least, it's a very intentional, I would say distribution of some kind to give kids that awareness of hearing stories. And we have several staff members at the high school that also spoke to kids that have had Air Force experience, Army experience. We had a couple of gentlemen that were active duty Army. One was an active duty Army retiree that was able to talk about, he went in at 18 and did 20 and retired and then started another career. And, that was lucrative for him. It was a good thing for him. It might not be for everybody, but we try very hard to share those experiences that we have because we feel like we have a responsibility to.
Well, I feel like it's the best thing ever happened to me, and I don't know how you feel about that, but as far as telling, if you had to talk to a young person today that come to you for a little ideas of, I don't say they're lost, but they're needing some guidance. The military is something that comes to your mind right away?
Absolutely, and from my own experience, the Air Force core values, integrity, excellence, and service before self really made me who I am as a person. It made me a better person in my job. It made me a better dad and a better husband, and it just made me a better person all around because of those experiences that I had and the things that were instilled in me.
Well, Paul, I appreciate you being here today. I know you got human resources is pretty busy in the school system. You don't get a whole lot of breaks. There's something going on all the time, but I do believe this. I do believe this personally. Whether you're trained or not, I think the discipline instilled in you, it changes you as a person, and I think it makes you a better administrator, whatever it is.
Absolutely. It gave me a different perspective when I left basic training. it just does something to you
Yeah.
in a positive way. But I really felt like I had a different perspective on life in general in my early years in the military, and it really.
Well, again,
Really
thank
was
you,
good for me.
thank you for all you did. I appreciate you stopping in here today and relaying this, because people need to hear
Absolutely.
this. They need to hear not just that we talk about honoring veterans, but I guess to me, I want to honor veterans, but I'm also at the same time wanting to encourage young people to know that there's something out there waiting for them, and and I don't see there are downsides. I know there
Sure.
are.
I mean-
And as you said, it's not for everybody, but I do think it's an option we don't relay to people enough, and I'm hoping parents, grandparents, and even young people will see this and say, hey, hadn't thought about that, so it might be an idea. So
Maybe there'll be somebody that watches that sees that as an option for them.
all right, well, like I said, you've been a good role model in what you've done, not only with the
Appreciate it.
military, but with Bardstown City Schools, and I hope that that makes a difference in the lives of somebody.
Well,
So-
thank you. I appreciate you having me. Thank you so
well,
much.
thank you. I appreciate you being here. Y'all stick around. A lot more to come. Got Paul Bowling here of the Bardstown City Schools, former Air National Guard veteran, and appreciate him being here with us today. Appreciate you tuning in. Stick around. A lot more to come here on Community Focus. We'll be back right after these words.
The local Veteran Spotlight here on Channel 6 Central Kentucky Television is brought to you by ElderCare Financial Resources.
Hello, I'm Kenny Fogle. Spent 25 years in the Air Force. My dad spent a few years in the United States Marines during World War II, and we're both veterans. And why is that important? Well, it's important for one reason, because a few years ago, my dad passed away. Mom was living on her own for a few years and got to the point that she just couldn't do that anymore. So we had to look for some place for her to go, an assisted living, nursing home, something of that nature. So what we had to do is we looked around for some way to get this paid for, so we checked with ElderCare Financial Resources. And they put us in touch with the VA, as they were able to do a lot of the work with the VA, paperwork, things of that nature. They did every bit of it and did it for free. In-home services, if you're recuperating at home, or if you go to a nursing home or assisted living, you want to check with ElderCare Financial Resources, and they can set you up with a VA program that could help pay for some of this. They've been in business about 37 years, last 10 years with the VA, and they've been a godsend for us. So if you need help with that, need help with anything to do with Veterans Administration, as far as elder care, as far as staying at home, going to an assisted living or nursing home, again, give them a call. ElderCare Financial Resources.